Good evening and welcome to the overnight session of From Day One. The part 3, so Art Bell is back and we're back in his wheelhouse with alien abductions tonight. With guest Travis Walton, originally airing August 7th, 2015. We'll start, of course, with our mailbag as we normally do, but without further ado, let's start tonight's interview.
From the high desert and the great American Southwest, I bid you all good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be in the world. Every single inch of it covered one way or the other by this program, Midnight in the Desert. I'm Art Bell. Great to be here. I had a surprise for you tonight, but it got blown by social media. That's all right. My guest tonight in a bit is going to be Travis Walton. Abductee, not alleged abductee, as it says on Wiki, but abductee. The real deal, folks. 2 rules for my show. No bad language. No bad language. And only 1 call per show. That's the rules. The thank yous are Telos for the great sound. It is astounding what this Telos gear does. Keith Rowland, my webmaster, my producer, Heather Wade. Tell you more about her in a moment. All of you, of course, the Bellgab website. Check them out yet. They're mean. Well, they think they're mean. Slightly lovable, mostly mean. You can handle it. People who love our Bell. MidnightinDesert.com. All chat sites. And the Stream Guys, of course, who get it all to you. LV.net, who gets it from here to Stream Guys. And then Peter Eberhardt, our sales guy. And you know, I've been forgetting Leo, our newsman, who does an incredible job, no question about it. All right, real quick in the news, Trump says Fox was mean to him. Mean. And I thought they were too, actually. A French search plane is lifting off looking for more debris near Reunion, nothing officially spotted as of yet. And then this item. Hi, Art. Email. First, welcome back to the airwaves, podcast, late night radio, and all that. Great to hear you again. This photo I took in the winter of 2007. I took it right after it snowed here in Everett, Washington. It was around midnight or so. My back deck looking northwest toward Port Gardner Bay, which is part of Puget Sound. There is a neighbor's house in the background, and there appears to be a ghost image, a pretty awful one, I might add, near the back edge of the deck, and it seems to be looking at me. Now, I didn't see it at the time of the photo, or the photo would not exist. I would have been heading indoors at a quick pace, locking the doors behind me. Hope you find it of interest. Boy, I sure do, Ron. Thank you very much. It's on artbell.com. If you want to go up and take a look, this thing is creepy by any measure. One of the better either ghost photographs or creature photographs I've ever seen in my life. So, artbell.com. All right, so in a moment, Travis Walton. I looked him up on Wiki. I've interviewed Travis probably 6 or 10 years ago or something. Travis, Wiki says, is an American logger who was allegedly, and I scratched that word out, who was abducted by a UFO on November 5th, 1975, after working with a logging crew in the Apache National Forest in Arizona. Walton could not be found, but in fact reappeared after a 5-day intensive search. The case received mainstream publicity, remains one of the best-known instances of alien abduction. Again, I went right past alleged. UFO historian Jerome Clark writes that few abduction reports have generated as much controversy as the Walton case. It was made, into a movie, a very, very popular movie called Fire in the Sky. And prior to doing tonight's interview, I again watched Fire in the Sky with my wife, who was utterly freaked out, completely freaked out. And so I imagine she is sitting intently listening to this interview. So what's going to happen is, coming up in a moment, the real McCoy. That's what he is, the real McCoy, Travis Walton. Stay right where you are. These interviews are few and far between. This is Midnight in the Desert, and I'm Art Bell, as usual, raging in the nighttime.
As always, we're muting just for the musical bumper. Once the bumper's gone, we'll be back. As we're in round 3 of the fight, and well, we were in round 3, as we're the winners. 2-1, moving up from 784 to 730. So we'll update the... I said 730. There we go. 30 away from getting that extra bonus per hour. Can't move on the arena without spending emeralds because we do have all 5 already played out there. Let's see though. Yeah, we can work on the governor. Which would be the Giant Slayer, starting with the Monolith of Guile. Music should be bumper done here in just a few seconds. And of course, we'll be returning to Midnight in the Desert, of course, when their bumper finishes.
And I heard.
Hopefully that doesn't trigger. This is pretty freaking long bumper art.
On your arm. Any sip.
Okay, Art, this is a pretty damn long bumper.
Then, with a smile on your face, please call the show at 1-952-225-5278. That's 1-952. Call Art.
Good evening, everybody. Here he is from Snowflake, Arizona. Actually, the place he always was, really. Travis Walton. Travis, hi.
Good evening.
Good evening. It has been, 6 years, 10 years, like forever, since we have had an opportunity to talk. So
yes.
It's really an honor to have you back. And I was serious about scratching out that alleged stuff. What happened to you happened. Period. That's it.
Absolutely. I mean, we're at the tipping point. Back in the day, they used to say anybody who believes in such things is a kook. Now we're actually coming to the point where the debunkers and the skeptics are the kooks. Because the definition of a kook is someone who believes things that are at odds with known facts and accepted beliefs.
Thank you.
And that's them, not us.
That's right. That is them, and there is so much to prove it now. And I really hate taking you back to this story again, but that's what I have to do because they'd crucify me otherwise. You're still married, right, to Mike Rogers' sister?
Yeah, but we've been separated a number of years, amicably, but definitely living apart.
Okay.
November 5th, 1975. In some ways, it's like yesterday. It seems, the emotional impact in particular, but the memories are so fresh, it's hard to believe it's been nearly 40 years.
Travis, has this thing defined your life ever since? I mean, I can't imagine that it hasn't. It's kind of defined your life.
Yeah, it has. Actually, I have to say regrettably that, it's something I live with every day. But the negative aspect of it has shifted. And, that might be surprising. I stuck it out here in Snowflake, and it used to be, people would look and whisper and point.
Yep.
But now, the local people come up, shake my hand, and or greet me openly, and they'll say, I always supported you. And I'm thinking, well, I wish you'd have spoke up a long time ago.
Back then.
No, but it is good, that almost every time I go out now, I get some kind of positive response. And I'll tell you what, we've come a long ways in this town.
Oh, yes. How big a town now is Snowflake?
Well, it was about 3,500 then, but I don't know, not a whole lot bigger, might be 5,000.
Okay. All right.
We have added a stoplight. We've added a McDonald's. So
you have a stoplight and a McDonald's.
Yeah.
Wow. We celebrated here in Pahrump, Nevada. We got our first stoplight and our first McDonald's, so I know how you feel. All right. So your crew consisted of Mike Rogers. Let's see.
Jim Peterson,
right? Is Ken Peterson or
Ken Peterson?
Okay.
Kenneth Peterson,
right? John Gillette,
Dwayne Smith, who always gets confused with my brother Dwayne. It's a different spelling of Dwayne, and then there was Steve Pierce and Alan Dallas.
Okay. I'm going to go to the movie for this, and I know the movie probably got an awful lot of stuff wrong, but there's something I want to ask about, and that is, well, you know what? I shouldn't ask about that yet. Tell the story as I suppose Mike might have told it that night. The movie, is it close enough for comfort, or is it far away from what actually occurred?
Well, anytime Hollywood tells a real-life story, they've got to simplify and abbreviate and sort of symbolize things, because you're telling in 90 minutes something that spanned years.
Right.
So some of that is to be expected and is acceptable. I had two brothers, Don and Dwayne, who became one named Dan. James Garner was several investigators and lawmen rolled into one. And they actually reduced the number of the crew from 7 to 6. And, some of that's acceptable and, understandable. But the greatest amount of changes were what happened aboard the craft. And I see no reason for that except commercial conditions.
All right. Well, we'll get to that. But all of this crew, you were up there cutting and clearing for, I guess, the U.S. Forest Service?
Yeah, it was a government contract to clear out undergrowth, damaged trees, and diseased trees, and generally clean up the forest, and also a lot of fuel reduction, which is fire reduction strips through the area that makes it easier to fight forest fires that might spring up.
It's hard work, huh?
Oh, it's definitely some of the hardest work you can do, and at high altitude on steep terrain, and carrying a heavy chainsaw all day. It's definitely not for the faint of heart.
Mm-hmm. It's for the young. And by the way, you are quite a bit older than you were then. How old were you at the time? You were 22, I guess?
I was 22, and now I'm 62.
Oh, my God. I'm 70, Travis, so there you go. Wow, you're over 60 now. Holy mackerel.
Incredible. I don't feel that.
Oh,
I can still outrun my boys.
I don't feel it either, at all. but it happens, and those years go by. So you guys were, it started out with you, everybody in the truck going up there and working, and I guess that you were on your way home. It was dark, and if the movie is accurate, somebody saw something in the distance that, and I guess you were part of this, that they claimed looked at first like fire.
Yeah, it was a glow, and we tried out a number of ideas of what it might be. Deer hunters camped out there, a plane crash, a fire in the truck, but nothing was fitting in with what we were seeing.
Right. It was a full glow in the sky, kind of like in the movie, maybe not as reddish, but a full glow,
right.
And the sun had gone down, of course, in the west, so it could not have been the sun. It had to be a fire or, as you mentioned, a crash or something like that. Anyway, it was apparently pretty much directly ahead of where you were headed on that only road you were on to get out of there, right?
Right, and closer we got, I could see that there was a break in the trees ahead where the light was shining across the road. So, Mike, hurry up and get up there when we see what it is, because by then, all of us had noticed it, and so we bounced along and went on up there. I mean, it was curious, but it wasn't all that alarming at first. But we burst into the clearing. Man, it was bam. It just hit us right between the eyes. It was unmistakable.
Mm-hmm.
Alan yelled out, "It's a flying saucer!"
Oh, did he really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. But it obviously looked like one, certainly depicted in the movies. Did the movies have it about right the way it looked?
No, not at all.
Okay, good.
But it's definitely not some little glowing point of light off in the distance like the skeptics tried to say it could have been the planet Jupiter. And this was less than 90 feet away, unmistakable metallic disc hovering there. I threw open the door thinking it would just take off before I got 10 steps outside the truck. But the closer I got, the scareder everybody got.
Yeah, they all stayed in the truck, right?
Yeah.
And, in fact, they were screaming bloody murder at you to get the hell back.
Yeah, they were describing me in some rather uncomplimentary language to get back in the truck so we could get the heck away from there.
Okay.
And I was scared, too, but I was trying not to show it. So, the closer I got, the slower I went. And I could hear the sound that it was making. It was a bizarre combination of highs and lows. And
highs and lows. You mean pitched high, pitched low?
High-pitched, cyclic sort of a sound, and then a throbbing, real below bass sort of sound. It was really complex. I gave a talk to an engineering school, and they were very interested in the types of sound that I was hearing because it would give clues about what might be driving this thing. But the closer I got, the scareder I got. And so when I got right up to it, I mean, I was awestruck, too. Later on...
well, let me stop you and ask you, first of all, it's not your average person, Travis, that would get out of the truck and try to run under something like this. The average person would do what the guys in the truck did after, something happened to you. They would take off like a bat out of hell. I mean, that's scary. So can you remember in your mind what caused you to get out of the truck and try to get under this thing?
Well, that's what I was starting to say, is that Alan and Steve thought to them it looked like I was under outside control, that I was in some kind of trance. But, I think we were all entranced, so to speak. It was just an incredible, awesome sight, and all the crewmen agree with that. And it was just, wow. And plus the sound, and plus there was something in the air, just this feeling. Mike said it seemed like something was about to happen. And I think that we were sensing this electrical charge that was building. But
oh, yes, humans can feel that.
Yeah, and what was making the hair rise on the back of your neck wasn't just fear. It was something kind of like a huge static charge or something.
That's probably exactly what it was. You can get that same feeling I've been under 500,000 volt lines, and you could actually get little shocks from touching the wet grass beneath it, and you could feel that in your whole body, kind of like that.
Yeah. And plus the vibration, it was subsonic and ultrasonic. They could feel it in the vibrating from the metal of the truck, But because Mike had turned the engine off because when everybody started exclaiming, he had to lean over to see what everybody was looking at. But when I got up to where I was looking up at about a 45-degree angle, it was just so astonishing. It was smooth as glass over the entire surface, but parts of it were glowing and parts of it were metallic. And it was giving off this glow at the same time you could see the surroundings reflected in the surface. It's kind of like when you look at a television set and you can see, from the window.
So it was reflective, not like a mirror, but somewhat reflective.
Yeah. And as I was looking up at it, those guys were, pretty much in a panic, screaming at me to get back in the truck. And I decided to turn around and run, but it suddenly got louder and started to move. And so I just instinctively just jumped for cover. And there was a log in the middle of the clearing, part of this brush pile that was there. And so I jumped down behind it and then, immediately, decided to run back to the truck. But when I stood up, my head and chest at that point became the closest point to that vehicle craft that it had been in that entire time. And that's with me. I just felt a shock. It felt like I'd been physically hit by a truck, but it also felt, like an electrical shock, sort of this numbing, sort of a paralyzing feeling. But that was something I did just as I blacked out.
Okay, all right. Let me ask you a question, Travis. Are you on a portable phone?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I am on a cordless hardwired line.
Cordless hardwire. Okay, good. I'm getting an occasional little breakup, but nothing big. Fine. So you decided at the last minute, the heck with this, I'm going to run.
Yeah. And
again, different than the movie, right? It didn't show that in the movie. What it showed in the movie was you got thrown by this thing. So that was wrong.
That is what happened. That is what happened.
Oh, it is what happened.
I decided to run, but I didn't just standing up and zap. And there was, the way it's depicted in the movie, the actor jerked and then was thrown back. But
right.
They kind of dragged it out. It was just it's strange because Hollywood normally, wants to put on a light show, and they really missed an opportunity there because it was far more violent than they depicted. It was so violent that it was compared, by the crew that was watching to a grenade or a landmine throwing me through the air.
Wow.
Some guy said, it threw me 10 feet. Some thought it was 20 feet. But John said that my body fell like a sack of meat, like there were no bones in it. They said that no attempt to break my fall or anything, to the point where, the violence was so powerful that they immediately started screaming it killed him. Yeah,
they were convinced you were dead, and frankly, even from watching the movie, I can understand that they thought this thing had killed you. And of course, at that point, if the movie is accurate, they said, heck with this, we're getting out of here, and went tearing down some of the rest of that road as fast as they could go. That accurate?
Nearly wrecking the truck. I do not blame them. I always want to say that those did the right thing at that point. What was the point of risking everyone's lives to save somebody they thought was already dead? So anybody that thinks that was cowardly is just wrong. Mike, had the safety of the crew, under his responsibility. When they got up the road, they said that they argued about whether it had actually disintegrated or incinerated me. When they were unable to find some deer hunters, with guns to come back, they decided they would come back. Now, in the movie, when Mike said, "This truck's going back, anybody who doesn't want to can get out and wait here," nobody volunteered to stand alone in the dark like in the movie. They all said, "No way, we're staying with the truck." So they all went back.
Okay, so oh man, that's really a deviation. So every one of them went back. They didn't stand in the dark as depicted in the movie. They all went back. Well,
yeah.
Bless their hearts.
I give them credit for that. That took courage.
Yeah, it sure did.
Like I was telling Steve today, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is to keep going in the presence of fear.
Yes. All right. So when they got back there,
Kenny was saying the scariest thing to him, because they saw the craft leaving. Scariest thing to him, he thought, would be what my charred body was going to look like laying there.
You say they saw it leave?
Yeah, as they approached the area, they saw it streak off.
Wow. And obviously they were immediately looking for you, and you were not there anymore. Now, was there any trace left on the ground of either you or the presence of that craft above?
Well, in long-term ongoing research, there was evidence of the craft having been there. And when the sheriff brought in the tracking dogs from the state prison, they were unable to find the trail going anywhere beyond where my body fell in the middle of that clearing.
And, before we get further with this story, because people are going to be going, oh, come on, when you get into the details, your entire crew was given a lie detector test. And if I have it right, in the first one, Dallas may have been a little unreadable because he was so freaked out, but everybody else passed the lie detector test. And then, moreover, they were later given a second lie detector test, and everybody passed.
Yeah, the second round, Alan Dallas first, because obviously he had walked out on his initial test, but this was with the same examiner. And Mike was retested. I took 2 more tests from the state police lie detector expert, which, at the time that the 6 tests had been passed, the president of the American Polygraph Association said that although a polygraph on a single test is less than 100%, when you have that many people passing tests on the same issue, the odds are over 1,000,000 to 1 of there being any error.
Okay, Travis, hold on. You can relax for about 7. This is Midnight in the Desert, and I'm Art Bell.
Again, muted for the musical bumper. Will return when they return. In the meantime, we'll try to finish up this trip going back.
For Dark Matter News, I'm Leo Ashcraft. NASA's 1-ton Curiosity rover landed on Mars 3 years ago this week. As the car-sized rover touched down on the Martian surface, it ushered in a new era of planetary exploration on Mars. But it was also the start of something else. Curiosity's sardonic Twitter alter ego, known as the Sarcastic Rover. The Sarcastic Rover parody Twitter account came into being on August 6, 2012, the night of the famous 7-minute of terror landing that brought Curiosity to the Martian surface. Sarcastic Rover's brand of science-minded wit was apparent from the moment it arrived on Twitter. Sarcastic Rover acts like any of us would after being sent to Mars. It's kind of upset, a little lonely, and it wants to make fun of everything. The parody account resonated with people immediately. The account attracted some 7,000 followers during its first night online, according to Jason Philichalt, a screenwriter and the mind behind the Sarcastic Robot. Sarcastic Rover now has about 134,000 followers 3 years into Curiosity's mission. One of our listeners, Ron, ran across a photo from the winter of 2007 that he says he took right after it snowed there in Everett, Washington. He says it was around midnight or so, and the photo was taken on his back deck, which is looking northwest towards Port Gardner Bay, which is part of the Puget Sound. You can just see the neighbor's house in the background. There appears to be a ghost image near the edge of the deck, and it seems to be looking at Ron. He says he didn't see it at the time the photo was snapped. Instead, Ron says he would be heading indoors at a quick pace and locking the door behind him. Take a look at the backyard ghost sent from one of our listeners, Ron, at darkmatternews.com or artbell.com.
After last night's show on Bigfoot, we've had earthquakes, meteors, asteroids, UFOs, volcanic activity, and something has shaken loose. Earlier today, young Eric Waters had an experience that will change his life forever. Today, a Boone man trying to enjoy a little bit of time in the North Carolina mountains had a run-in with Sasquatch. His little doggy was able to chase it away. Due to some licensing issues on YouTube, we were not able to get the audio or the video for this. I am going to attempt to reenact today's video. No, Yippee! No, Yippee! No, no! No, no. Oh, okay. Oh, we're safe. That's about it. And while he was breathing heavy and saying, no, Zippy, off to the right seemed to be a humanoid beast, a little shorter than normal. Might have been maybe a teenage, younger Sasquatch or Sasquai or Sagittarius. The Yeti seemed to be crouched and crawling away to the right. Seemed a little shorter than most. Yeah, that's right. Height doesn't matter. Well, this little guy was moving pretty quick for your normal Sasquatch, but hey, maybe he had to go. When nature calls! We enhanced some of the audio using our spectrometer vocalizer by subtracting the first and second tracks. Here's what we found. It continues to haunt me. May no a cation vey. According to our Pig Latin specialist, he was saying that he was on vacation. Eric's memory of this is corroded and polluted by the horrible smell. He said it was somewhere between a dead, rotting flesh and the sweet, pungent smell of a freshly sprayed skunk. Bigfoot investigators and enthusiasts from all over the area have swarmed to this little North Carolina town. Hopefully we'll find out soon what they have. This is John G. with Dark Matter News.
Dark Matter News done. We'll be back with Art Bell in just a second. Meanwhile, we'll go after some Pastor Rings in Chapter 8. Art is in a deal of lyrical musical bumpers tonight.
Boy, let me tell you what. Didn't know it, but I'm a
He's now playing oh, what is it? Devil Went Down to Georgia.
Midnight in the desert via Skype worldwide. If on a computer, please be sure to use a headphone mic and call MITD 51. That's MITD 51.
All right, everybody. Travis Walton is here. A very rare interview. And I'm trying to cover as many details as I can and see where the movie separates from the truth and what the truth really is. This is a real story. As I mentioned before the break, everybody involved took multiple lie detector tests. And so this, it's a real thing. Listen on, I guess, at your own peril if this kind of thing scares you. And it scares me.
As of now, there are 16 past tests. I've passed 5 different tests with 3 different examiners with extensive years in law enforcement, which is considered the better, more qualified polygraph examiner.
Even in the movie, the guy came out and said, look, the truth is these guys were telling the truth, in my opinion. So.
Yeah, and, the examiners stand by it to this day.
All right. So we're going to get back to what happened to you in the craft, but the whole town went to buzzing as you were gone, and you were gone for a total of 5 days. My God, that's a long time. They had dogs out. They had people out combing. They had helicopters up. They looked for you everywhere, and, of course, they began to suspect your crew of your possible, murder or something,
murder.
Right? And and they became kind of unpopular in that small town. Are you still friends with Mike, by the way?
I haven't spoken to him in quite some time. He's kind of, threw up his hands and didn't want to talk about this anymore. But
I do understand. How about the rest of them?
I'm going to have a couple of them come and speak at my conference, which we'll get to. And I'd like to get Mike to come too, but his health's not what it used to be.
I do understand. All right, back to the movie for a second. One thing they never explained in the interviewing they were doing, as they thought you might have been murdered, they spoke to Alan Dallas. Now, it was referred in the movie, or referenced in the movie, that Dallas, he was kind of a, I don't know, what words would you use to describe?
The black sheep of the crew. Yeah, he had some trouble with the law, and he was just generally, I had a few run-ins with various guys on the crew, and he and I had done a little sparring, and
yeah, he didn't much like you, I guess, huh?
There was a little bit of antagonism over some things, It was a girl that he had been approached that I had been dating. This was before my wife. And then he and Mike got in a fist fight in the street in front of my house. And so, it was just his nature. But the day of this incident, he had dropped a tree nearly on me. And that's what led to all this problem with the polygraph. Did he have any bad intentions towards me?
I see. That's why it came out a little screwy.
Yeah, because he was pretty sure that they were going to try to pin the murder on him.
Well, it looked like they might try pretty hard for a while there. What they never explained, and Alan admitted that there had been, Alan Dallas admitted there had been an altercation with you. Now, was he referring to the tree? Because he had a pretty nasty cut on his hand. And they never explained that.
We get scratched up at work all the time, And after I was returned, the doctor examining me found a puncture on my arm. And, it was assumed that happened during my abduction, but it could have easily been, being poked by a thorn in the course of a work day,
Well, the one on Dallas looked really serious, like, he touched a chainsaw or something. Did you have a fight with him?
Not with chainsaws. I mean, he nearly dropped the tree on me, and I gave him a dirty look and said some things under my breath if he could read lips. It wasn't a friendly exchange there, but
not physical.
Kind of normal. I mean, a rough bunch of guys.
Oh yeah, of course, alpha males, all of you. But was there an actual physical altercation with him?
when he tried to spin kick on me, Steve, the youngest guy on the crew, laughs about how Alan fell on his behind trying to do that. It was just semi-good-natured sparring.
Okay. All right. So no altercation that would have produced a cut like they showed.
No.
All right. Now back to you, Travis. And you were, while the whole town is going nuts and they're searching for you for all these days, you're suddenly in, well, where?
Well, I woke up on board the craft. I didn't know where I was at first, but I was in a lot of pain. And I was in and out for a while. And when I finally did come to, it was in a foggy, hazy kind of way. My vision was blurred and even double vision, and it even hurt. The light, even though it wasn't bright, hurt my eyes, and the pain in my head and chest was incredible. And I felt it was life-threatening. Something was terribly wrong inside.
Describe your environment, if you can, when you woke up. Can you? I mean, when you looked around, what did you see?
It was dimly lit, and I could hear the sounds of movement around me. And I could just barely make out the forms of what I thought were doctors. But then my vision cleared, and I could see these aliens standing close. And it just completely freaked me out. I mean, I was already scared about the way I felt, but I just completely lost my mind with fear.
Were you, describe what you were on, if you can. Were you on a slab?
I was lying on my back, and I was close enough to the ceiling before I even looked over and saw them. I figured I was on some kind of a gurney or a raised operating table, and I thought, that I'd been hurt somehow and taken to the hospital. But then when I finally focused on what I thought were medical people, it was these aliens, and I just flipped out.
Okay.
A lot of people think, I would stay calm, ask good questions.
Who thinks that? Not me.
But you have to understand that, the pain I was feeling, the feeling of something mortally wrong inside, but moreover, the most important feeling was that I felt like I couldn't get enough air, the feeling of suffocation. There's a scene in the movie of a membrane.
Yes.
When the actor's laying on the table and aliens are surrounding him, and he's struggling to scream through this membrane, struggling to breathe through it. That didn't actually happen, but I think in that case it does a better job of explaining the source of my panic, or at least the chief source. That feeling of suffocation combined with the feeling of weakness, like you can't move when you need to move quickly. To get away. And so, suddenly realizing where I was gave me a shot of adrenaline, a burst of strength to actually sort of lash out at them. It was, pretty weak. And it was more of a push than a hit. And I rolled away in the opposite direction. This device they had lying across my chest fell off and hit the floor, but I just mainly kept my eyes on them as I backed away or stumbled backwards. And when I bumped up against this shelf behind me, I just looked real quick to see what I'd run into. And there was some things there, and I just grabbed the biggest thing there and started flailing in their direction. And that stopped their approach.
All right. Two things to ask. One, the movie depicted a lack of gravity. You said something fell and hit the floor, so obviously there was some gravity. Yeah,
there was gravity. There was no weightlessness.
Okay.
And actually, if anything, it might have been slightly heavy gravity.
Really?
To explain that feeling of weakness, although just the feeling of injury. I really think that whatever happened with that blast of energy from the craft, it did so much damage that when I came to at that point, whatever efforts had been made to revive me were not complete.
All right. You described aliens very close to you, and of course everybody would like to know, forget the movie, were these creatures all similar, or can you describe?
Yeah, they were very similar.
Okay.
And you do have to forget the movie because they changed them. The panic that the people at Paramount had was that these aliens had been in another production immediately prior to the production, filming Fire in the Sky.
Right.
And they did not want anybody, seeing something that had been seen before. So they changed their appearance, but they were back in then they didn't have the term grays, but that's what people call these small, hairless, grayish white beings with huge eyes.
And that is what you saw?
Yeah.
So that part of it actually, there's a classic gray that you just described. Hairless, pretty small generally. Any idea how tall they were?
Shorter than 4 feet for sure.
So small.
But, I really don't use the term gray. I don't like that. I think that there's probably a number of similar species that are just being stuck under one name that really come from really different places. And I have a whole line of reasoning that tells me that that's the case. The variations in descriptions that you see, and also there are a number of species of animals on the Earth that look very similar but are completely genetically unrelated. They just look similar because they live in a similar environment. And that's what I think is the case with these.
Whatever they are?
Yeah.
So you pushed one, I guess, pretty hard. Did he go reeling backward or what?
Yeah, it was softer and lighter than I expected, but it fell back pretty easily. And it was probably partly because it was totally unexpected. I think they were trying to maintain control of me, and it took me many years to figure out that it was probably some kind of neurological impairment due to this blast of energy from that craft that actually worked against their normal method of being able to control humans and keep them in some kind of trance or in a unconscious state. And that's why when they came around and I started flailing at them and they stopped and stared at me, that I felt that stare was so excruciating. That was my nightmares for months after the incident. That stare gave me this horrible feeling in my head. And in support of that was the EEG that I was given immediately afterwards that showed there was some kind of anomalous pattern that, I think is consistent with, some kind of burst of energy hitting me in the head.
Wow. Did they ever get control of you?
No, they were unable to get control of me, and I was thinking of fighting my way past them when they abruptly turned and left the room. They may have anticipated my move or just given up on. If the three of them combining their forces couldn't control me, they were going to have to go to Plan B of some kind.
Plan B. All right. Can you describe the room you were in?
It was very small, dimly lit, cramped. Not at all like depicted in the movie. It was not organic looking. It was not cluttered. Very featureless, metallic surfaces. I saw no writing or symbols, but, they may see in a broader spectrum of light than we do, and there may have been something
that you didn't see.
Yeah. But anyway, they left and went down a passageway to the right. So I went out and went to the left, fearing that they would come back.
Of course.
Looking for a way out, just in a blind panic to just open a door, and in my back of my mind thinking, just drop to the ground, be back in the woods.
Drop to the ground.
Yeah, I'm thinking that it was the craft was still in the woods.
That could have been acceleration that you were feeling that would make you feel heavier. At this point, you couldn't even really know if you were still in the atmosphere of the Earth or way past.
Yeah, in hindsight, it would have been foolish to get a door open, but that was my goal. And so I was afraid because the passage was so narrow and so cramped and it turned so tightly that I couldn't see very far behind me to see if they were chasing me, and I couldn't see very far ahead of me to what was I, coming to.
Actually, I can see why you would think that. You might even think that you were still hovering not all that far above the forest floor. So, yeah, of course. That makes sense. That you would look for a door.
I went into this room where there were other doors leading out of it, which later piecing together the floor plan wouldn't have led to the outside, but I thought at that point that was my best bet of escaping this place.
Makes sense to me.
And so I pushed buttons and things trying to open the door unsuccessfully. And it did cause this star pattern projection to move at one point.
What do you mean?
And
what star pattern?
There was this room was darkened and had points of light. Now, whether it was a planetarium-like projection or some viewing method of where it was actually at in real time, I don't know. But, it was very disorienting to have this pattern move.
Isn't that interesting? I don't recall hearing this before. A star?
Well, it might have been, like just a map that was moving. But when your sole points of reference are these points of light, it's
right.
I was already unsteady on my feet. So I decided to quit messing with that. And, in hindsight, what if it was actually moving where the craft was,
Good point.
Turning it upside down or something? Could it crash it or something? I don't know.
All right.
But anyway,
one quick question before we go on, and that is, from the moment you woke up, Travis, did you have any sense at all of how much time had passed or whether a lot of time had passed while you were...
I had no idea.
No idea.
My initial impression was, since this was the first thing I was remembering since, turning to run away, I thought it was immediately afterwards. But in hindsight, it could have been a day or two or, who knows how long afterwards.
Okay.
And also very far away.
Okay. What is your sense of the totality of time that you spent on the craft? How long?
Well, the conscious memory that I had upon return, it was a very brief period of time. I figured it was less than an hour, but obviously 5 days and 6 hours.
Wow.
Everybody leaps to the question, well, what about time dilation? You travel near the speed of light and time passes more slowly for you.
Right.
Well, the thing that refutes that was when I told my brother, said something immediately upon being recovered. Something he said about my mom worrying for these days. He could tell that I thought it was still the same night.
Wow.
And he said, Travis, you've been gone 5 days. Feel your face. And I had a 5-day growth of beard. And that is what overturns the time dilation idea.
All right, Travis, hold it right there. We've got a quick break. Travis Walton is my guest. I'm Art Bell, and this is Midnight in the Desert. Stay right where you are.
And actually for us, come back tomorrow for part 2 of Mr. Walton's UFO alien abduction story. We have just a few minutes left of tonight's part 3. We will spend it in the Grand Arena. As always, it's first to win 2 wins the prize. For us, to move up. For him, some coins for the defense. With that, unfortunately, the Sounds of Dominion are not with us quite yet, but we nevertheless head down to the Grand Arena stage. Alrighty, so we got Corvus, Maya, Mojo, Phobos, and Artemis. And that was quick, as the good guys from day one pick up a 1-0 lead. The reason I put that team there is putting Yasmin and the like up against the team that's in Team 2 would have likely had them tossing, as we have their Aurora, Aurora Astaroth, Dante, Thea, and a hidden one I can't get a quite a good identification on. And we're not holding up well. This is not going to be good. Maybe I should have gone with the other way. Because there's no way Team 3 is going to win against the Yasmin team. This, as they say, is a loss. It's a loss. And we'll speed it up just because, well, we don't need to see a loss in action. There we go. Alrighty. Well, let me check the bubble real quick, see if there's anything that we need to know. No, they're just getting ready for today's Guild War. And actually, let's go ahead and take a look at that real quick. I am recording this a little earlier than normal. So actually not running up straight against a new day in Dominion notice. So this will be very early in the Guild War, less than 30 minutes in. Scoreboard is just 31-40, New World versus Hakari. Hakari has only used 2 attacks for those 40 points, so they are perfect thus far. 2 attacks used by the New World and 9 points minimum have been missed. As we take a look, one of the bridge has been knocked down for the New Worlders. Over on Hakari side, 2 of the 4 bridge locations have been knocked out. And actually, since we were talking, a third got knocked out, leaving only Cynthia to defend at a 447. Okay, flip, and there's the third X there. So it actually should be 31 plays 60, not 40. Don't know why Nexters is not reporting the correct score. Ah, there it goes. I had to go out and in for it to get the report. Alright, we can check the energy levels of the teams real quick while we're here, to make sure the numbers we have up on our taskbar are valid. So 183 computer. 183, 143. That would be on the hero side. And over on the Titan side. Oh, no, I don't want that. I wanted my Titan side. Thank you. The score is now up to 81,338. Still a long ways to go, but at least it is improving. Now that score, however, just so those of you who always are trying to know exactly where you stand, does not, repeat, does not count your totem. Game does not calculate your elemental spirit totem in that score until you actually do fight. So that 81 is not counting that blue totem over there, which currently sits at level 40. Requires silver medals or emeralds to continue to boost beyond the score. Sorry. Now the way this works is this. All your water titans get that automatically, as long as you have at least 3 or more water titans in your formation when the fight begins. Now this, the health regen, will basically spread out over 10 seconds and actually over 20 durations. So this would be actually about 1200-ish per tick, and it's 2 ticks per second. So every half a second, each of your titans would gain 1200 by standing in the water pool. At the same time, 1200-ish would be deducted from your opponent's life. And as you see, the next level would only add another 981, but that would also again be spread out over 20. As you can see, adding a star adds a lot more than adding a level at this point. However, since I can get another one if I hit 45k, I want to hold off on using that white spear if I can do so. Because the white spear will guarantee me one, but then I'll have to spend like 470,000 emeralds to guarantee the third, which would suck. Garfet's the individual we currently are dealing with for the event. I may buy scrolls to move him up a level, but only at the absolute end of this event, when we know exactly how many stones we're going to get out of other activities. So until then, of course, do make sure you do like, share, and subscribe to get us to where Boxy next year's of 5,000 views and 1,000 subscribers so YouTube pays attention. Start sending us items so we can send them to you. Coinbase information below. Fill that out to get your free crypto, and through Coinbase Earn less than 2-minute lessons, 1-question quizzes to get up to $100 in free crypto. Till we see each other tomorrow, it's always still a great new world to release the Krakens. Have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow night during this overnight for part 2 of the alien abduction interview with Travis Walton from Midnight in the Desert here on day 1.